Okay, hello everybody. Thank you for joining us in our resume workshop by Alicia Perkins. I'm Sarah Jawad, the community lead for Air University Women in Computing, a community which inspires and empowers women in tech and computing fields. So, a lot of people are applying for internships and jobs these days, but the first step to getting to that, your professional career, is a resume. And a lot of people don't know about resume, or they don't know how to write the right sort of resume. So we have Alicia Perkins with us, who is the CEO of Prepared Careers and the resume expert, and she's going to tell you how to write that resume that's going to get you the job. So yeah, over to you, Alicia.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to talk about one of my favorite topics to talk about, and that is when it comes to learning how to write a resume, right? It's not just about learning how to write a resume, but you want to write a resume that's actually going to get you the job. So I'm so thankful for you guys allowing me to be here to speak with you on this evening. So let's go ahead and get started. We kind of have quite a few little topics that I do want to address with you guys. And so I definitely want to make sure that we do have some time for some Q&A. So let's go ahead and I'll share my screen with you guys. And we're going to go ahead and get the slideshow started. So again, like I said, this is one of my favorite topics to talk about. And I love, because a lot of things when it comes to writing your resume that most people don't really know about. And so we're going to get into a few of those points. So, but a little bit about me first. My name is Alicia Perkins. I was in HR and a hiring manager for over 10 years. And so I have hired for over 40 different fields, those fields being technology, manufacturing, healthcare, finance, HR, any kind of industry you can think of, I probably hired for that. And I have definitely learned what it takes to make somebody marketable. And so what I've done is I've kind of leveraged all of my knowledge and my experience that I've gained working in HR. And now I'm helping job seekers and professionals land careers that they actually love. So again, I have helped over 3,000 professionals with services such as resume writing, career coaching, LinkedIn help, and I also work with universities and schools as well. And so I've worked literally all over the world. I do a lot of my workshops that are global as well. And so this a little bit about me. My website is either IamAliciaPerkins.com or preparedcareers.com. Again, if you are on LinkedIn, please go and connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always sharing awesome job tips and things like that. And so, and then you can find me on Instagram as well at IamAliciaPerkins. A few of the talking points we'll be talking about is what makes an effective resume, also applicant tracking systems, and we'll be talking just a little bit about branding as well, and then we'll have some time for some Q&A as well. So first things first, it's very important to realize that when it comes to you and your resume, it's your first impression, right? A lot of times if you are applying for a particular position online, they don't even really know you. And so the first impression that they will get of you is of your resume, which is why it's super important to make sure that that resume is selling you and is selling you in the best light possible. Okay. And so I think my slide is stuck. There we go. So this is a very interesting but true fact. When it comes to a hiring manager or a recruiter, we only really look at your resume at first for 6.5 seconds, meaning we are glancing through that particular resume and seeing, okay, is there anything in the resume that wants to make me keep reading. When you're applying for job boards, especially right now because of COVID and the unemployment rate is as high as it is, sometimes you have 300 to 400 people applying to one position. So that's why it's very, very important to make sure that when it comes to that resume, that it is captivating, right? A lot of the times I see the same mistakes with people. They have a resume that's very bland, that is not really highlighting them, and is not really results driven, which is something that we will talk a little bit more about in just a few moment. So again, if anything, if you don't remember anything through the whole workshop, remember that we only read the resume at first glance for 6.5 seconds. So let's talk about what makes a resume effective, right? The number one thing that's going to make your resume effective and really help you to land that next job is that it needs to be targeted towards a specific role. That is super, super, super important. I see a lot of people that make their resume very generic. They want to throw all of their experience on there. But what's going to help you stand out is that when that particular person who's reading your resume, they're wanting to know, okay, what problems can you help me solve? Right? And so when you throw all of your experience and all of your skills, it kind of it gives them a hard time for them to actually see how can you help them. So that's why that resume needs to be geared towards a specific role. So all of your experience and all of your skill set is only highlighting that certain field. So our fields are roles that have a lot of transferable skills, which I will talk more about in a few minutes as well. So what I'm saying is, what you don't want to do is say, okay, I have a resume that I'm applying for a technical role, but then I have experience on here of when I worked in a bookstore or whenever I was working in banking. Now you can use that, but you want to be sure that the skills that are being highlighted is referring to that specific role. The next component of an effective resume is a powerful summary profile. That summary profile on your resume is that little top part. That's going to be the first place that their eyes land on. One of the mistakes I see that when people have a resume is that they don't have one of these. And then for two, they leave that space for a very generic statement. And that objective statement may say something like, I am wanting to obtain a position at your company, right? That summary profile, which should be about 3 to 4 sentences long, that is stating not what you want, but what you are able to do for that particular company. So that summary profile is driven by value. And you can add some kind of success in there as well. So remember, that's going to be the first thing that their eyes land on. So that is a very, very key component of having an effective resume. The next good tip is having a good mixture of hard and soft skills. Now let's talk a little bit about this, because when I deal with a lot of my clients, especially them that are in technology, this is one of the biggest mistakes that they make, is that all their information is like technical, right? It's kind of straight to the fact, is very data driven, which is a good thing, but it's important for the employer not to know what it is that you do, but it's important for them to know how you work as well. And so it's a good thing to have a mixture of both hard skills and soft skills, so that resume is not just filled with a bunch of software that you have experience in, or a bunch of projects that you've done. It's very important that to have a good mixture of not only what you do, but how you work as well. And excuse me. And this is also speaking again about if you have experience with project management, if you are able to work well with teams, how are you able to measure your results as well. Another effective component is quantifiable data. meaning learning how to measure your accomplishments. All right, this is something that people miss out on, and it's a good way to have your experience solid, and it's a good way to make you appear as a person that wherever you go, you bring results. Now, when you are for a certain experience, one of the things that I always tell all my clients is to make sure that when you're looking for experience, that it's very important to make sure that you adding numbers, percentages, metrics as well. And also the key point that I want to bring out and show as well, that it doesn't have to be an exact amount, right? That number could be a guesstimate as well. And so one of the things that I want to stress to you is that I don't want you to kind of like overthink it. Say, well, I don't have a whole lot of experience. But it doesn't matter if you don't have a whole lot of experience. The key thing is knowing what value you bring and how to measure those results. And I also have an example of that so I can show you exactly what that means as well. And so, again, we're talking about actually quantifying your accomplishments with numbers. Oh, I think my camera's off. Sorry about that. And then I want to talk about keyword optimization as well, which is super important. Which is a key thing that most people don't do, and that is going to play a big role in the applicant tracking system. And that's really huge, because when it comes to the applicant tracking system, which I'll explain some more about either, that can break or make your actual job search. So when I'm talking about keywords, I'm talking about you using specific keywords or a specific skill set that is centered around your job. Remember, when that company is, they are reading your resume, they're wanting to see how you're able to really help that particular company, right? So the way they're able to see that is if you use terminologies that's related with that company or position. If there's any methodologies, you need to become familiar with those particular keywords that are in your field. For instance, if I'm talking to a software engineer, in his resume, I would expect to see things like SQL, Tableau, JavaScript, right? Because those are keywords that's related around his particular field. Let's go on to the next slide. My computer is really moving a little slow this morning, guys. Sorry about that. More also is to make sure that it is the right length. I've seen so many people, especially those that are just starting out, that don't really have a lot of experience, but their resume is still 3 pages long. When you're just starting out, it's best to keep that resume under 1 page. Super important, right? And one of the reasons why it's important is because if you don't have any experience in your resume, it's only about, and your resume is only, it's about 2 or 3 pages. That's letting me know that you're sharing too much information and you're not really narrowing down on the actual key skills. So it's very important to make sure that the resume is the length. Another thing is that it's easy to scan through, right? That is super important because okay, I just saw she said that she can't. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. And my camera's on. I'm sorry about.
No worries.
See me, Sarah? Can you all see me?
No, we can't.
Okay, well, let's see. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry about that, guys. I do want to be sure that you all can see me because I know that when you're doing a presentation, that's super important. So, okay. Well, it's on. Maybe it'll kick on pretty soon, but that's okay. What I won't do is I don't want to hold up the PowerPoint. So let me get back to that. So the components, the next component is that it's easy to scan through. It's very important to realize that when the reader is scanning through your resume, how our human brains work. We are wanting to find the most valuable information that we can as soon as we can possibly find it, right? That's really, really, really important. I see people who when they're writing their resume, they're writing it in a paragraph form. That makes it very hard for us to scan through it. Just remember, when it comes to your job responsibilities and duties, that they are that they have bullet points, that your resume have headers on it. This is also going to help you through the applicant tracking system as well. It's very important that the information that's on there, that it is related to the position that you're applying for. That's super, super, super important that resume highlights those skills and is shining you in the best way possible. The next point is to make sure that it is accomplishment driven. Remember this, when you're writing your resume and you are writing your bullet points for your past experiences, when you're writing those bullet points, you want to think about not what is it that I did, but what was the result of what I did. And I have some examples for that as well too. So that makes your resume more focused upon results, because employers want to see what kind of results you're able to produce. This also helps people that may not have a lot of experience, right? Because they know, okay, this person that may not have a lot of experience, but everywhere they go, they bring forth results. And this is what you want to be highlighted in your resume. So if you streamlined any processes, right? If you were able to create any new systems, if you were able to help with customer service, if you were able to help with any database management, what was the result of that? Was sales grew? Was it where customer complaints were downsized? So you want to think along on lines, like not so much as far as my day-to-day duties, but what value did I bring to this particular company? And that's super, super, super important. One of the next components is using power words, right? So when you're writing your resume, you definitely want to get away from words like managed, right? Or responsible for, but you want to use words like led, spearheaded, developed, created, collaborated with. Those are considered power words, rather than you downplaying your experience and using basic words. These power words, and this is something that you can actually go online and Google, 100% free. You can enter in resume power words, and they'll give you over 200 words that you are able to use instead of just using those basic words. So let's talk a little bit about the applicant tracking system, because most people don't know that this exists. And I don't want you to take this information and think too hard about it, because when it comes to applicant tracking systems, they can be very complex. But it's not so much of how can I beat the ATS system, but it's more about how can I make sure that my resume gets past it, right? So an applicant tracking system is a human resources software that acts as a database for job applicants. Roughly 99% of Fortune 500 companies use applicant tracking systems to screen resumes. In addition, about 70% of larger companies and 20% of small businesses use ATS as well. Humans will make the ultimate decision on whether to interview and hire you for a job, but you should make your resume ATS friendly so it has the best chance to get seen by human eyes. So it's very important that when you're writing your resume that you know that there is a software system that screens your resume before it even gets to actual human eyes, right? And that's why when it comes to formatting, that's why when it comes to using keywords, this is vital to make sure that it gets past that actual system.
Alicia, sorry, I'm gonna interrupt. We can't see the full
Yeah.
screen. Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's showing full screen on my side. So let me stop the share and do it again because it's showing full screen on my side. Okay. Okay. Let me know if you can see it now.
Yeah, it's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. No, I'm very sorry about that. So when it comes to the applicant tracking system, it's really, really important, again, to make sure that your resume is getting past it, because if not, what happens is, you know, you find yourself, you're like, Alicia, I've applied for 200 positions. I'm not hearing anything back. And when my clients tell me that, that lets me know that there's something wrong with that resume that is not even being looked at. So that's why it's important that you know and you realize, again, that your application is going through a software system. So that's why it's good to have good formatting and things of that sort to make sure that your resume is actually being seen. That's the key thing. So I'm going to give you a few tips on how to make your resume to actually go through this system. And again, when it comes to applicant tracking system, there are hundreds of them, but this is pretty much the basics of it. Again, well, I want to talk about you using keywords. Now, a lot of times when I was at HR, we used the applicant system. When we would enter in that particular job posting, we would put in certain keywords that we wanted to look for, right? So if I was looking for somebody that maybe a finance person, right? I would say, okay, I need this person to have some knowledge of Salesforce. I would like this person to have some knowledge of bank ledgers, and I also want this person to have some knowledge of reconciling, right? So that means I am saying to that system, hey system, look for these words. If those keywords were not in that particular person's resume, I didn't even see it, meaning that system scored that resume and maybe like a 30% score. And when your resume is scored at a 30% score, chances are I'm not even going to read it because I'm thinking that you don't have the experience that I need. And that may not even be the case at all, which leads me into my next point on how to tailor your resume to the job description. That's really, really important because most people don't even read the whole job description, right? They just kind of scan through it and they are looking for certain key parts. But that job description tells you exactly what that company is looking for, and they put their keywords in that job description. I tell people, hey, you need to make sure that your resume is tweaked for every position that you apply for. They say, I don't want to tweak it. That's too much work, when really it takes you about 5 to 10 minutes to go to that particular job description, pull out those keywords. They may have keywords like project management, database management. If they have certain software skills in there, you need to put those keywords in your resume because that's going to make you score higher through that tracking system. So that job description is almost like a map to tell you, hey, this is our perfect person, right? So tailor your resume to that job description. We talked about earlier about having a powerful summary. Tailor and tweak your summary based upon the requirements for that job. And I promise you, you will see a world of difference. The next thing that helps this applicant tracking system is using standard headings, meaning headings that say experience, skills, projects, right? summary. Having these certain keywords, is very, very important, because again, this system is actually reading your resume. So when your resume has the proper headings, it's able to pass through it smoothly. You want to avoid columns, headers, and tables, because sometimes those do interfere with the tracking system. I always tell my clients, simple is better. Don't focus on you using a cute layout. I see a lot of people using the templates from Canva that they think are so nice and so cute, but they're not tracking system friendly, because these particular templates, they tend to use like just a lot of different things that are not needed, such as the columns and the tables and the headings. And then also, do not put a picture on your resume unless it is a requirement for that particular job, because this can also mess with the applicant tracking system as well. But I do know that there are certain companies and requirements that need that, but if they don't add it on there. Let's go to the next slide. And I made one that's talking about the common mistakes of a resume. Remember, we are talking about a resume that's going to get you the job. So I have to talk about mistakes. We talked earlier about it being too long, it being too generic. Another one is unprofessional email addresses. This is huge. Remember, your resume is your first impression. When you have email addresses that say babyboy12@gmail.com, that doesn't really shine you in the best light possible. I always say, when you're using these email addresses, if you use your first and last name, that is fine. Just don't try to get too creative with this, because you definitely want to be sure that you're not cutting your own throat before you even speak to a human person. So make sure that resume is, the email address is as professional as it can be. Another thing is getting too personal. I am not a fan of putting hobbies on your particular resume. That is not necessary at all. Remember, the information that we're putting on our resumes is geared to a specific role, and it's only going to add value for that role. So if there's any kind of extra like hobbies and things on that is not needed. Another thing is putting too much work history on there. The history only needs to be related to that specific position, and it only needs to go back 7 to 10 years. So you shouldn't be using anything that you did in high school or anything like that, unless it was within the last 7 or 10 years. Grammar errors is a big thing. There's actually a free resource called Grammarly, Grammarly. Grammarly is completely free, and it will scan your resume or any document to make sure that there are no spelling errors or anything like that, because that's going to be the number one turnoff, is when your resume is full of mistakes. Not using transferable skills. This is really huge for people that don't have prior experience. How you find out your transferable skills is going to take a little bit of research. You need to get into the habit of studying job descriptions. It's huge, right? You need to study job descriptions, okay? And then, because it's like, you need to get comfortable and know what these roles require of you, because that's going to help you identify those transferable skills. Again, when it comes to transferable skills, these are skills, it's the same skills that are used in a wide range of roles, such as project management. Research is another transferable skill. Management is a transferable skill. Leadership, right? So these are skills that are not specified to one specific role. So what you do is on a piece of paper, you want to write down all of your experience. And on the other side, you want to write down all of the experience that's going to be needed for this new role. And you want to start aligning that experience. And then while doing that, you're going to start saying, wait a minute, I have a lot more experience than what I think I do. right? And so this only helps you not only to identify your strong areas, but it also helps you to identify what skills you need to start building up as well. I know a lot of times we don't have a lot of experience in something, we tend to want to shy away from it, but it's good to really tackle those weak areas head on and start building up those skills. Another thing is being too modest on your resume. This is truly a time to brag about yourself, to brag about those results that you've brought forth. This is really, really huge. Another thing I talked about earlier is those objective statements. Those statements that say, I want to obtain a position, here, right? That's too generic and it doesn't give value, and it's speaking about you when you should be speaking about the value that you're able to bring to that particular company. Another thing is not using volunteer or internship experience. This experience counts. Underneath your experience section on your resume, that's not just paid experience. That's any kind of experience you have that's related to that position. You want to add that on that job. So if you have any internship, any volunteer, any freelance work that you've done, you are able to add that on there as well. So let's look at I want to talk a little bit about quantifying the data, right? And this is what I was talking about. So I want to ask you, who would you hire, right? And if it's possible, you can, but I'm not sure if you guys can enter in the chat box. But the first candidate says, manage the production and inventory of large accounts. So this is one of her bullet points for her past experience, right? So she says she managed the production and inventory of large accounts, right? And then the other candidate said, he was saying the same thing, but he said spearheaded the production and inventory processes for 35 accounts, resulting in 1.5 annual revenue. So if you can put it in the chat box, who would you hire? Would you hire A or B?
The chat box is open, everyone. You can put it down.
Yeah, if you would hire candidate A or B. Some people said A. B, okay, B. Well, good job, good job. Well, I know for me, I was in HR. I would definitely go with this candidate B, right? Because he's not only saying, hey, I helped my company bring in $1.5 million, right? But he's telling me that he was able to handle 35 accounts. So when you are quantifying your data, it's not only about your results, but it's also showing them what kind of workload can you handle as well too. And you can do this with anything, right? So I will give you an example, right? So let's say you worked at McDonald's, and this is just an example because I'm going to show you that you literally can do this with anything. And say, okay, one of your bullet points on your resume said that you helped with the orders in the drive-thru, right? Alicia, how am I able to quantify that, right? Only experience I have was that I worked at McDonald's. You can say that you were able to you process, hold on, let's make sure I can do this right. I'm trying to do this from the top of my head. You can say that you processed 200 to 300 orders per shift, and you helped with customer service issues and were able to streamline processes by 35%, right? And this is just an example, right? You can really do this with anything. And so again, you don't want to focus on the action or the day-to-day job duties, but you want to focus on the results. And this is what candidate B did. He said, hey, I spearheaded. And this is where those power words come into play versus than saying manage. Everybody uses the word manage on their resume, and this is not descriptive enough. It's not competitive enough. But you could say you spearheaded, meaning I led the production and inventory processes, and I did this for 35 accounts, and I brought forth this. $1.5 million. Again, you can say, Alicia, I don't really know those numbers. It doesn't have to be an exact on amount, but you need to give the reader an idea of what results you're able to bring forth. And this is why it's important that when you are working at these companies, that you keep track of your accomplishments. I have clients I work with all the time, and I'm sitting down with them and I'm saying, okay, what are the accomplishments that you brought forth? And they'll say things like, I don't know. I don't remember, because you forget. I had one client I worked with, and she was at her company for 9 years, and she was ready for a switch on her resume, and I was asking her about her accomplishments, and she felt like, I really don't have any. So I began to dig, like really dig, and ask a lot of questions. And she saved her company $200,000. I mean, she created new systems, but it's because she downplayed her experience, and she only saw it as day-to-day job duties and didn't realize the impact she was making in her company. So that's why it's important for you to keep up with your accomplishments. If there's any results that you bring forth at your company, I don't care if you work at Starbucks, I don't care if you work at McDonald's, you have some kind of accomplishments that you are bringing forth, and it's important for you to know what they are. Let's go to the next slide. And we're going to talk a little bit about having a personal brand. I really can do a whole workshop just on this. It's something I'm really passionate about, but I'm going to talk about it for about maybe 5 minutes. It is 2021. You need a personal brand. It is of a necessity if you want to stand out in this competitive job market. If you want to skip those job boards, you're going to need a personal brand. It is huge now, right? Because when you have a brand, when I say brand, a brand is just a particular image that you have created yourself to be. And so, and a brand is how you want to actually be known by, right? So over here, we have a restaurant called Chick-fil-A. I'm not sure if you guys heard of that before, but we have a restaurant here called Chick-fil-A, and it is huge, right? I mean, every time I go there, the line is down the street, but I wait every time because I love them so much. It is not just that their food is good, they have great customer service. But the thing about Chick-fil-A is they only serve one meat. Chicken breast. That's all they serve. So it's not that they have a lot going on, right? Or a whole bunch of options to choose from, but it's because they have branded themselves, right? And so when I think about French fries, I think about McDonald's. If I want a good burger, I think about there's this restaurant here called Whataburger, right? Because these restaurants have branded themselves around certain items, and that's the kind of people that they also draw to them. So when you have a brand, it helps you stand out. It will attract opportunities. If you are on this Zoom, you need to get active on LinkedIn, right? It is a humongous platform. We have over 740 million people on LinkedIn. Every recruiter, every hiring manager is on LinkedIn. I see the mistake that people make today is that they and this is actually a post that I made this morning on LinkedIn, and people make the mistake of they just sign up on LinkedIn and lurk. If you are signed up on LinkedIn and in the chat box, drop a number 1. If you are signed in on LinkedIn and you engage and are very active on LinkedIn, drop a 2. Because when it comes to LinkedIn, it is an amazing platform, but a lot of people they're nervous when it comes to LinkedIn. All they want to do is lurk or just or actually comment every now and then, but you are missing out on a amazing website. When it comes to LinkedIn, when it comes to LinkedIn, 97% of companies recruit from LinkedIn. I was in HR. We we search for talent all the time, even when we didn't even have job ads posted on job boards. We were always looking for talent. And so this is why it's very, very important to make sure that you're on LinkedIn, you're making those actual connections. This is all a part of your personal brand. Another thing is that you can, you are able to control how you are portrayed. This is wonderful for people that do not have experience in their field, right? So if there's a new field that you are trying to break into and you have no experience, you need a personal brand, right? Because you can't control how people see you. And it's the simplest things that you're able to do, sharing content. I know that when it comes to making posts, that's something that people are really, really afraid of, but you are able to share content around that particular field. Share any trends that are happening in your field, any developments that are happening. Share those things, because what you want to happen is that you posted that information in their minds. They will see you in that field already. But you go, well, I don't have any experience. Well, that's what a personal brand does. It also provides credibility, because when these people are on LinkedIn and they are searching for talent and your page is bland, it's blank, there's nothing really on there, it's hard for us to see you in that role because you have not branded yourself for that role. So get on LinkedIn and get active. Also, it positions you as a leader in your field, because I can say probably about 60% of professionals, probably even more, do not have a brand. And all we tend to do is just when we are looking for work is, we're on Indeed and we're hitting apply to every job that we see. And we don't realize that when you get that personal brand, you can actually skip those job boards and actually attract opportunities towards you. And so I remember when, not on my own business now, but when I was working full time, I've always been very active on LinkedIn. I think I have over 6,800 connections on LinkedIn. I've always been active, always been trying to build relationships, to where the point where when I was working full time, I would literally get job offers all the time through LinkedIn from companies that would find me, because I branded myself on that particular site. And it wasn't just that I was getting any kind of opportunities. I was getting the opportunities that I wanted because I branded myself around what I wanted. And so when you are doing your pages on LinkedIn, it's not you just having a page on LinkedIn or having an account. It's about you creating that page to signify and to be targeted towards those specific roles that you want to actually go after. Because I'll tell you this, the job market is competitive, and the people that are getting the jobs is the one that is doing the work and building relationships, right? You cannot depend strictly upon job boards anymore. I was in HR, and whenever there was an open position available, we went to our team first and we say, hey team, do you guys know anybody who would be a good fit for this role? Because when it comes to companies putting out job ads, it costs money, it costs time, and these companies would actually prefer to hire on referral basis. So that's why I know when it comes to networking, it works, because I've seen it work over and over again. So, and this is my last tip, and I'll be finished. What you need to do is make a list of 40 to 50 companies that you want to actually work for, right? Make that list. And then start to target the people that are within these companies and start networking with them, right? Because a lot of times what we want to do is send somebody a message on LinkedIn or wherever and say, hey, give me a job almost, but they don't know you. And so that's why it's so important to start building those relationships, because when they do know you, they will want to help you out. And so when it comes to networking, it's not something that's done, overnight, but it takes time. And it takes you being very consistent in it. But I am a believer that it works. And so that is the end of my presentation. And so I believe we will go ahead and move into our Q&A.
Yes, thank you, Alicia. Just before we go to the Q&A, I just want to announce that we're going to be sharing a feedback form. So don't forget to fill that. You'll get your certificates from that. So we will just be doing that. And Shireen is going to be moderating the questions. So put down your questions that you want to ask. Over to you, Shireen.
Yeah, sure. It can be about LinkedIn, resume writing. So, any questions?
Shireen, we can't hear you.
Am I audible now?
Yeah, you are.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Perkins, for enlightening us with such helpful tips so that we can, step up our games on our resumes. So some of our participants have some interesting questions, so I'll quickly move to them. First, we have Amna Masood, who wants to know that if we have no prior experience, how can we fill the experience gap in our resume? Above that, if we don't have any accomplishments, how do we, do that? How do we work on that?
Yeah, so to answer the first part of that question, like kind of like what I said earlier, is identifying those transferable skills, right? And so, it's important to find out how does your past experience align with these current roles. And like I said, you don't want to just focus on paid experiences. If there were any courses that you have taken, any projects in school that you had that are related to that specific role, there are any freelance work, you also want to kind of focus on that as well. And so, but if you don't have any experience, this is where networking really is going to help you, because if you don't have any experience, those job boards are going to be really competitive. Whereas if you start to connect with people that are in spaces that you want to actually be in, then you have somebody vouching for you. So that's why I tell a lot of my people that don't have experience that you really need to start to build those connections, because the job boards are just too competitive. And if you don't have hands-on experience, this is a saying that I always use: where experience lacks, competence needs to exceed, or knowledge needs to exceed. So if there's a particular skill or something that you don't have hands-on experience, learn everything that you can about it. Because when it comes to companies, even if you don't have hands-on experience, but you have some knowledge of it, that makes them feel better, and that makes them know that they don't have to start from scratch. So build up knowledge in it.
I hope that answers your question. Thank you so much. Next, we have a question by Kinza Raja, and she wants to know if we cannot prove that we worked somewhere, like we don't have anything to support our claim, should we be adding that on our resume?
If you don't have what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part.
If we don't have anything to support our claim, like we don't have, we can't prove that we worked somewhere. We worked at a company or a firm. So should we add that on our resume?
If you can't prove that you work there, again, then I would say kind of like the first question, just really relying on the projects you did in school or coursework. So I have worked with clients that they didn't have any experience, so we really had to highlight that. But in the meantime, start finding a way to start doing either volunteer projects. I know that you are able to contact a lot of companies that will allow you to do volunteer work from them. So if you don't have experience, it's not so much of finding out how to put no experience on your resume, but it's more about you finding up ways to build up that actual experience. But if you don't have experience right now, that's fine, but just make sure that your actual coursework is being highlighted in your projects in school.
Right. Next, we have Ikra Zainab, who wants to know how can volunteering experience help us in finding a job?
Yeah, so it's kind of the same like the first two questions. you know, when it comes to experience on your resume, it doesn't matter if it's paid experience or not. So when you're writing that volunteer experience on your resume, put it under that experience section and write it just as if you were writing it for a paid job. And it can, now it's not just any kind of volunteer experience, but any kind of a volunteer experience is where it can, that is geared toward that specific role. And you also, when you're writing that volunteer experience, you want to focus on the results that was actually done there, and you don't just want to, just write down, oh, I did 500 things here. No, you want to go into detail and talk about how are you able to actually benefit that particular company.
Right, right. So Usman Ghani wants to know that he has a query about soft skills, sorry. Should he mention that in his summary, or in list wise? Should he be mentioning a summary of that in his resume, or should he mention the list?
Oh yeah, I'm big on having a summary and then a skill section. In the summary section, it's okay, but you don't want to put too many soft skills, because you want to make sure that it's not a bunch of fluff. It needs to be value. So in those skills section, I always say you need to have about at least 8 to 10 skills on your resume. Bullet point those skills. Again, this is about good formatting and easy scannability. So yeah, it's okay. Like soft skills can be like time management, critical thinking, teamwork, stuff like that. So I wouldn't overload the resume with them, but just kind of like sprinkle them, throughout.
Right, that's very helpful. Next, Ikra Mushtaq wants to know that is it necessary that a resume must be of a single page, or maybe it can exceed to a page or two because of more experiences or achievements?
Yeah. It's not a resume rule, that says it got to be this amount of pages. But a lot of times, if you're just starting out in your field, it should never be over a page. But if it is going to be over a page, because sometimes you just may have a lot of very experience is just great, and you want to share that, just make sure that it's geared towards that specific role. But your resume should never go past 2 pages, because when your resume is going over 2 pages, then that's more of a CV, which is more of a detailed version of a resume. So a resume is usually between 1 and 2 pages. A CV is anywhere between 3 to 4 pages. So anytime your resume is over 2 pages, it lets me know right now that you're just sharing too much information, and there's definitely some information that's able to be simplified.
Right, okay. Fatma Shakil wants to know, should we follow a particular eye-catching resume templates, or are there any websites for that?
Yeah, there's, I want to say TopScan is a good one. What else is a good one? My mind went completely blank. I'm just gonna say Google, because there are a lot of ones that are not free, but also Word document has a lot of free templates, but just Google search it, free resume templates. There's also one called resumebuilder.com is good as well.
Okay, we're noting those down. Breen wants to know that there's this misconception that we shouldn't be using first person nouns in our resumes, like I or we. So what do you say about that?
I'm not a big fan of that. I think your resume should not be using those kind of pronouns, because it's still a professional document, right? So you can talk about yourself. You can say an experience data tech with, right? So you don't have to use pronouns. I think when it comes to that is more suited for your about section on LinkedIn, because your resume shouldn't sound conversational. Your LinkedIn page can sound conversational, but your resume shouldn't sound like that, right? Because it's still a formal document. Now, again, this is not some golden rule, But I just know that in a lot of the resumes I've seen, a lot of resumes that I've done, that they don't use pronouns on them.
Right. So Halima is asking if she should include personal information such as hobbies or interests in her resume. Like you already stated that you don't like it to be personal. What do you want to say about that?
Yeah, I just think that it's good to stay away from that stuff because people do have biases, right? And it's just the reality of life that there are some people that, you know, if they see that you like a certain thing and they don't, you know, like, oh, I don't like that, then that can do something in their mind, right? And so I just think it's good to really stay away from that. And then when it comes to your resume, I think from the moment that they start reading that resume, they need to start seeing that you are the perfect person for this position. I can see them in this position. Whereas if you're adding a bunch of extra information, that can sometimes like take, you know, from that. So I don't think it's a good idea.
Right, thank you. We're taking this last question from Usman Ghani that do a lot of certifications in resume help in getting a job? How helpful is it? After which we'll move on to Sarah.
Certifications?
Yeah, he's asking if you know, if he has a lot of certifications and he mentions them on his resume, would that be helpful in securing a job?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that that can help. Just make sure that those particular certifications again are geared for that specific role, or it applies to that specific role. You don't want to overload your resume though with them. I would say put no more than 4 on there. And then if you do have the particular certification, what you want to do is just put the name of that particular one, and then where you got it from, and leave off dates.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Perkins. You've been really
No problem.
helpful.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
No worries. I hope everyone's queries are answered. Now, over to Sarah.
Thank you, Shireen. Now we're going to conclude it. Thank you so much, Alicia. We had a great, you know, learning from you, and it was such an honor to have you. Thank you so much. And I'm sure a lot of you must have learned so much from Alicia's valuable tips and tricks. I had a lot of fun hearing them. So it was great. Thank you so much. Everyone, don't forget to connect to Alicia on LinkedIn. We will share the links below, and do follow us on our social media. And don't forget to fill that feedback form to get your certificate. So thank you so much, Alicia. Bye. Have a nice day, everyone.